Hey trainers, and welcome to our first live and in-person episode of Future Sight, which is of course a soundproof production. My name is Brendan Lewis, and I am joined, he's joined by
Technically,
me.
You're joined by me, yeah.
We're here in Jake's office today, as I am here for a visit of indeterminate amount of time, but we'll talk about that another day.
Too long if you ask me.
But yeah, we're here with another episode of Future Sight here after a bit of time off for various reasons. I think you were ill, and then I was traveling.
Yeah,
and there was something else before the week. Anyway, we've had 3 tournaments since then, so we had a whole bunch of matches to choose from, and we ended up picking one from Vancouver, from
Yes.
top 4 of Vancouver.
Yeah, the most recent regional as of recording and as of posting. This was a fun one. So, we had 2 regionals in a row with first-time attendees winning, which was wild, and we're gonna see one of them in this match. Yeah. I don't know if that had happened. It probably happened very early on, obviously, but even in the even the Gen 6 and on eras, I can't think of something like that. Which is,
I have memories of first-time players top cutting, but not winning the event,
right.
obviously.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
That's pretty unheard of, and for it to happen 2 times in a row is mind-blowing. But I think that both of these players, well, this player that we're about to feature anyway, was somewhat established in the online scene, or at least
for
somewhat known,
yeah.
and then just hadn't been able to make any live events. So it's not like somebody picked up VGC 3 weeks ago and then managed to win the event. There's a lot of time and energy that went into it prior to this.
Yes.
So anyway, the match that we're going to be featuring is the top 4 match from Vancouver, which is between Abdullah and Dylan. And Abdullah, I know you just brought it up, but maybe we shouldn't spoil it yet. Anyway, Abdullah is attending the event for his first time.
And Dylan has definitely not cut regionals before. So we don't know who this.
I don't know. I mean, by saying that, I was going to have to say anyway. Abdullah, well, weirdly enough, has no previous accomplishments in the live circuit. But yeah, so Abdullah is attending his first regional here today and running a team that should look a little bit familiar to folks that are keeping in touch with the scene. This became ultimately a pretty popular team towards the end of Series 2 after it was built by Nails, Nick Navarre, who won.
He top 4'd Knoxville.
Top forward. Okay, so top 4'd Knoxville, and then it kind of made its way around. I've seen it infinite times in the online tournaments, especially the draft tournaments, is that everybody has been using this team. So obviously Lilligant Torkoal is a combination that we've seen many times in the past, or Venusaur Torkoal, or some iteration of Chlorophyll plus Sleep Powder. So to see it again here is not super surprising.
No, and I know Nils has always been a fan of Sun. He was kind of a pioneer of Sun in DOU for a while, back in Gen 7 and 8. So was it 7? Maybe just 8. I don't remember. Time is fake. But it's no surprise to me to see Nails pull out a team like this, and no surprise to me to see it do well. Especially because there's always a history of people stealing Nails' DOU teams and also doing well with them.
And his VGC teams.
Yeah, that too. I think everything just works together really well, though. I think Terrafire King Gambit on Sun is really neat, because a lot of times Sun can have issues with something like Arcanine, but Terrafire King Gambit specifically just kind of dunks on Arcanine. And you also get it's running Terra Blast, so you get a stab that's also Sun boosted. You get both those multipliers on it, which is really good. And I think the Scarf Great Tusk is cool too. That's not one of its more common items. I think usually Sash or Life Orb or something. I've seen it. Yeah. But it makes sense. You have an Earthquake partner in Dragonite. Otherwise, Headlong Rush and Close Combat are still really good. And it's very hard to give Great Tusk a speed boost with Photosynthesis. I don't even know if it's possible. You might have to run negative nature with less IVs or something like that. Yeah. So you get the speed boost from Scarf, but also you still get the attack boost from Photosynthesis.
Not quiet. Timid.
That too.
That's what I meant. Quiet. Quiet's the opposite. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about as far as this team goes is that even though Torkoal has been a pretty good Pokemon in the past, and Photosynthesis would scream, put it next to Torkoal, we haven't really seen that kind of team that much.
No. I think more than a lot of people would say it was good in paper and just didn't actually.
But past Paradox good stuff plus Torkoal kind of makes a lot of sense, and I think the only place we'd really seen Torkoal up until this point was Heart Trick Kroom.
Yeah, probably.
So this is kind of the team that I guess I'd been waiting for.
Right.
And I guess it makes sense that Lilligant is there too. So anyway, so that's Nails' team. On the other side is Dylan, who did his own team building, as you can kind of see. And obviously I don't mean that disparagingly. I think that it's important for people to team build. And this doesn't really look like anything that we've seen at any other point in the format.
No, I don't like Sandy Shock's never really caught on outside of like Sandy Shock's Pathra stuff. So it's cool to see it have a deep run here. It's Assault Vest with like Earth Power, Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, and then Terra Blast. I was trying to think earlier about what specifically Terra Fairy Terra Blast covers that you don't otherwise hit. Because like my first thought, Iron Hands, but you're one of the best Iron Hands answers regardless. And I couldn't really think of anything off the top of my head other than just kind of general coverage. Because I don't think it has like a huge move pool regardless.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I guess it maybe flips like Baxcalibur.
I can see that, yeah.
But even then, it's not even... That's all I can think of. I mean, it gets rid of grass, it gets rid of water, it gets rid of ice. So it's like, obviously Terra's like a fine type in general, but as far as like to cover its I don't really know enough about using Sandy Shocks to know like what its matchups are, I guess.
I also just can't think of a fourth move off the top of my head that it wants. Like I don't think it has like a huge coverage move pool. Like it doesn't get a grass move, I'm pretty sure. I know it doesn't get...
They're usually Terra Grass for that reason, I think.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, again, not a Pokemon I know a ton about, but I think you're right, is that you could run maybe like some other ground or electric coverage, like something...
Does it get Fissure?
I have no idea. The move pools of the Paradoxes are like really bizarre. I think like some of them don't get things that you would think that they would, and some of them, you know. Anyway, going down the line here, obviously Tauros was something that we saw in Regulation A a little bit, but didn't really catch on in Regulation B at all. I'm sorry, I can't say there was a but the Mirror was something that sort of started to pick up towards the end of Regulation A, I think, and then is kind of being used in...
You can slip, I
can. The same way here.
Yeah, no, it won San Diego, so it won like the first major in the whole format, in not like regulations notwithstanding, but it kind of dropped off a cliff. Like the main usage of Mirror Herb is to cheese on King Gambit, which turns out works out well here in this matchup, but I can't really think of a great reason to run it otherwise, because you don't see a whole lot of setup other than like Dondozo.
Right.
But you have to have it on the field for that, which is a lot more situational.
And in that case, it's almost exclusively for King Gambit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what we usually see it for. And then the last thing I want to point out is that this looks like it's just Gavin's Baxcalibur just completely ripped from the team that he won with.
Pretty much.
Before he left Palafin behind.
Yeah, it's like Glaive Rush, Ice Cold Crash, Ice Shard,
yeah. And I think somebody told me that Dragon Fang was to guarantee a KO onto bundle with Baxcalibur.
Oh, I see that.
So I guess that kind of makes sense.
The Roaring Moon is cool too. Like almost every single Roaring Moon has been like Terra Flying, Acrobatics, Dragon Dance, or Tailwind. You can run either.
Yeah.
But this one's Terra Fairy, which is purely defensive, and it's just Throat Chop, Tailwind, Protect, and Breaking Swipe.
I like that set a lot.
Which I think is cool. Yeah.
I like that set a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we covered it there. So the one other thing that I wanted to mention before we get into this is that this is actually the second matchup between these players at this tournament. And they played in day 2 Swiss and then ended up both top cutting, which is cool and speaks to both of their tournament runs and their respective resistance, or Dylan's resistance at least, because he's the one sitting at 11-3.
Yeah.
But in the first set, Dylan actually like 2-0'd very convincingly.
Yeah.
So we'll keep that in mind as we go into our top 4 here.
Well, the notable thing from that set that you were saying was that there was no Lilligant.
There's no Lilligant. I don't think he brought it at all. Abdullah didn't bring it at all.
Right. Yeah. Which, as you can see, is very clearly on our screen right now.
So. What?
Abdullah at least picked up on that and decided to bring Lilligant, but we'll see.
Here we go. Yeah, so Lilligant is here. Lilligant Torkoal, obviously like a very scary lead, and especially if you go down the line looking at Dylan's team, he doesn't have, his only grass type is, he has like Tauros grass, and there exactly is the pitfall of relying on turn 1 sleep powders, where if you miss, it can put you way far behind, so he just gives away Lilligant's sash immediately on turn 1.
Yeah, you give away the sash. I think you prefer that to a Tailwind, though, I think, because if the Tailwind goes up there, then you're in such a worse spot. The Sandy Shocks doesn't have to worry about a sleep powder anymore. And I would imagine that sets up Dylan better later on than this Breaking Swipe would have. But even then, like Lilligant, clearly not going to get knocked out by a Breaking Swipe. A Throat Chop may, but you have to not attack the Torkoal in that case, or whatever comes in. So like an unfortunate miss, but not like a game-changing one right off the bat.
All right, and then there's not really anything because of Nose Tail 1 stopping you from just sleep powdering again.
Right.
Surely the second
it would never miss twice.
As Fluttermane hits the field, which I think is really like the key is Fluttermane and Lilligant. I think ultimately becomes like the really important combination, because if you look through Dylan's team again, like Fluttermane can kind of just sort of run through it once you remove some of like the few things that can do notable damage.
Well, and even like just looking defensively, like the only thing that resists Fairy is Terra Poison Excalibur, which can't switch in unless it's already Terra'd.
Right.
So it's pretty rough. You get not Lilligant, you get Fluttermane in here at the cost of an Earth Power, but at the same time, like you threaten 2 KOs with Dazzling Gleam, Leaf Storm this turn, provided the Roaring Moon stays asleep. But I don't know. I think that's a fair switch. Like that's not damage you really love taking, but as long as Fluttermane gets to attack, it's not a big deal.
Yep. And it certainly will get to attack here. And then like a double target into the Sandy Shocks is probably what's on everybody's mind, right? Because even if you switch in Tauros or something like that, it's going to take a billion from Dazzling Gleam and then get knocked out by a follow-up Dazzling Gleam. The Leaf Storm, wow, that actually does a lot to Assault Vest, Sandy Shocks. Dang.
I don't think it has the best defenses.
I guess not. And then Dazzling Gleam is just going to take 2 knockouts here.
Yeah. So like the risky run there for Abdullah is a 1-turn sleep. And in that case, you certainly lose Fluttermane to like a throat chop, and I'm sure that Mulligan sticks around, but that's not a favorable trade. Like it's a 1 in 3 chance for that to go really south. You would never miss a sleep powder and then get a 1-turn sleep though. Like that, come on, that's not how odds work.
Not at all. No. It always corrects itself eventually.
Exactly.
That's just the way that it works. So Bundle and Tauros are going to take the field here, and this is like kind of a situation where like one of the few things that Bundle can actually be outsped by.
Right. Well, it's not booster bundle.
Right, it's Sash. Yeah. So I guess it's getting outsped by. I don't know, like booster is the thing that really puts it over the top, but here obviously it's getting outsped by Lilligant. I'd have to check whether or not does it still outspeed in the sun.
Barely.
Okay.
I had made that mistake in Knoxville. I was like, oh, I don't know, and then it did.
Oh, okay. Well,
because we were just looking at Moon too, and it was like considerably faster than booster Moon.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how we learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Lilligant obviously is threatening to take it down to 1 HP here, and then a follow-up Dazzling Gleam. Like there doesn't seem to be like I think as right here at least you want to make sure that you get Bundle's Sash.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
With this combination.
And if I don't know that Tauros even survives like a Terra Fairy Specs Dazzling, it probably survives it barely. But even then, like if the bundle Sash doesn't get broken, like say it protects here and all you get is 90% damage on the Torque hole, like you still just knock it out with a Leaf Storm later on, and it's not going to be a big deal. Because like at that point, I don't think Dylan has enough time, or has enough turns left, just to have like enough damage to have damage like a Mulligan plus Torque hole plus 4th.
Yeah, and I think we haven't seen what's in the back, but it seems likely that if it's King Gambit like seals up as long as you get the Dazzling Gleam, right? King Gambit seals the game.
Yeah.
Scarf Tusk seals the game here. Yeah. So there's like any number of Pokemon that you could potentially have in the back that would like clean up this combination, so long as you take the Sash.
Yeah, and even if you like. Oh my god!
Just takes it.
I forgot about that. Because even if Fluttermane goes down there, like even Torkoal is set up pretty fine, just because you have to close combat to actually damage it with the Tauros, and it has the Torkoal has Earth Power, so it's a fair damage trade either way.
Yeah. So he's gonna get he gets a double protect. Okay, so that's just the last turn of Sun, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. But I don't know. Actually, what do you Icy Wind next turn?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think you just sack Fluttermane probably, because I don't think preserving this specific after you Dazzling Gleam is your like main win con here.
No.
Like as long as you get Sun back up and Lilligant on the field, then I think you're fine, regardless of what's next to it.
Right.
We just see the King Gambit there too.
Yeah, you can just hard switch. Wait, he's switching out.
I guess that makes sense too. Get the Sun back up immediately because the bundle, like they just protected. So you have to, like your lose con here is a double protect again, which I guess they just got on Torkoal, but like.
Okay, but isn't the Flutter Booster special attack?
Yeah, but the Sun's over. So there's no more after you.
Yeah, but can't it just gets knocked out here by bundle?
What does the Flutter?
Yeah, if you don't switch it out.
Yeah.
Oh, he's switching it into that slot. Okay. Yeah. I thought he was switching it into the Lilligant slot, and I was so confused. I was like, what do you mean? Okay, so he doesn't get it there.
Double,
yeah. And then a Leaf Storm miss, I guess, would be the other condition. But Not today. And then we get to see how much damage a single target Specs, Terra Fairy, Photosynthesis, Moonblast does to
Certainly
Tauros.
more than 100%. Yeah. So yeah, I think just from this game, like Lilligant, easily the like MVP.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's no way you can argue otherwise. And so I'm curious as to why Abdullah wouldn't have brought it in their previous games.
Yeah,
possibly. I don't know when they played. It could have been later on. So maybe Abdullah thought like, oh, I'm locked for cut. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Like reveal that Lilligant literally just solos this team.
That's like a really 5-head move to make. I don't think a lot of people like really think to do that.
Right.
Especially because like maintaining an information advantage is way less valuable than it used to be in the advent of. I don't know. I'd have to look at the teams again to really like think about why. I mean, I guess Tauros is pretty like scary, especially Terra Grass. Like if you guess wrong on whether or not it Terras, then you can end up taking a lot of damage.
Yeah. The thing is though, like at least in game 1, like the Tauros was in the back, so it wasn't a free swap into Lilligant until it Terra'd. So it had to come on the field and then Terra, and then switch out and then come back in if you want to have that scenario. I think in like looking at game 2, I like the Tauros lead a lot more, just because you immediately threaten Lilligant with damage. You threaten like the Grass Terra to block a Sleep Powder. But at the same time, like the Sandy Shocks still has to deal with the Lilligant. Like it can't touch a Lilligant. You have to rely on surviving that Leaf Storm, which is maybe a roll, maybe it wasn't. So it's a nice lead to threaten the Tauros, obviously, because Tauros just drops to Earth Power pretty easily.
Yeah, I think this is probably the best lead that you have. Like if you were trying to pick 2 Pokemon from your team to take on Torkoal Lilligant, like this is probably it. But it's also like a little spooky into the rest of the team. Like if you try and lead like Dragonite or something like that, you get a pretty like big head start. Like something like King Gambit can do really well into this lead as well because you're Terrifier. So yeah, this seems like probably Dylan's most favorable lead into the Lilicool stuff.
Yeah. I would agree.
Anyway, let's see what happens. So let's see what the Leaf Storm or the Sleep Powder target is probably gonna be most important.
Right.
Or just an after you eruption. I don't know if that's the play that I would have made, but it is certainly something that's available.
I kind of get it, because if you want to knock out Sandy Shocks, you know that Leaf Storm won't do it. So maybe you think like Charcoal, Terrifier, Sun Boosted Eruption is stronger than Leaf Storm.
Yeah, you'd have to be really familiar with the cal. I guess that's the one thing, right? Is that I'm really not. But I guess even if you don't take any knockouts here, if you get into Flutter the next turn, then you take your knockouts. And there's not a lot of things that can switch into Flutter on Dylan's team.
Yeah, you lose the option to Terra Flutter, which I think kind of sucks, because that was a lot of your damage last round, or last game, rather. But you trade, I guess... Oh, it's not even Earth Power. Okay. That I like a lot.
That's better.
I like that a lot more. Yeah. I agree. Just because Lilligant was such a problem. And so making sure that gets out of the way. Like, you have the Sandy Shocks for later on. Clearly, the Eruption did... I think it did less than Leaf Storm, so just numbers to keep in both those players' heads. But I think that's just really smart, getting rid of the main threat. Because now that... Like, you still have to deal with the Flutter main, but you have the speed boosting Moon, and you have your Terra to save it, and you also have Bundle, presumably, that can like Icy Wind it for other stuff too. So I think it's a lot more playable without the Lilligant. Yeah,
definitely. Although King Gambit is like kind of a scary thing to see here, especially because he's Assault Vest, right? Yeah, he is Assault Vest. Yeah, so that does a lot of work into this combination. Yeah, and
the Sandy Shocks is probably in sucker range too.
Definitely, yeah. So the condition in which King Gambit gets the opportunity, or you get the opportunity to actually like Earth Power into King Gambit
it's looking bleak. I think the only time. Well, no, yeah, never mind.
So looks like it's just gonna double down into Torkoal here, and it is gonna take the knockout. And some of these Paradox Pokemon, that's in the sun and everything.
Well, it's also Torkoal.
Yeah, I guess. I was kind of expecting
the Pokemon without a special defense.
But it's always max HP.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's a roll. I'll say that just to make myself feel better. So they get so Torkoal goes down, and now Abdullah's down to his last 2 Pokemon, but I think you're still like feel pretty okay about this position. Like if you're Abdullah,
like, honestly, King Gambit can 1v3 this.
Yeah.
Because like presumably you Throat Chop and Freeze Dry the Flutter main, maybe for a KO. Like the Freeze Dry didn't do much that first game, but even if that does KO, like you still got an attack off with the King Gambit. Sandy Shocks is in sucker range. Like there's not a whole lot of damage being thrown into King Gambit, so you kind of have to worry about that a lot if you're Dylan still.
Yeah. Yeah, because he was down to what, just out of red. So that's
yeah, it was like low yellow.
Yeah, so the win condition is like some sort of misplay, maybe like that might have been misplay.
I don't know why you sucker punch there.
Yeah, I guess that is, and that's close to the roll from
that
the
was
first
very
game.
close.
Wow, okay, because it was at what, like 43 or something like that. Yeah, and then it ended up taking with 4 HP, so that's right near the range. But yeah, I think that needed to be like anything, maybe like but a sucker punch.
I mean, I think it's like,
I guess
sucker
you're just taking the sash there either way.
Same.
Like you have to take the sash regardless.
I don't think that's a big issue because that plus Iron Head or Kowtow should be enough.
Yeah, and then do you have enough damage here? Like you have to take you have to take a Hydro Pump out of Sun plus a Throat Chop, plus 2 Throat Chops probably, right?
Yeah,
because no Earth Power. That's assuming you KO bundle this turn. And I think you always Kowtow bundle here, so...
Yeah, for sure. The bundle is the only thing on the field that can actually do non-zero damage. And even then, Sun is still up, so that's still nothing.
Oh, Sun is still up. I was looking for that. I was looking for the particle and I didn't even see it.
It's still like raised. Yeah. Even then, it's still the right Kowtow target.
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe you can try and protect bundle there, but that's a really hard play to make. And, well...
I don't know that matters. Like,
wait, was that the last turn of Sun?
Matter? No. It's still up.
If that was the last turn of Sun, I think... Yeah, that's definitely in sucker range for sure. Yeah.
Well, even then, I think you kind of want Sun up with Sandy Shocks in the field because it's going to boost special attack. So only off chance you actually get an Earth Power off, like you're going to do more damage because one Earth Power probably doesn't KO with the Assault Vest.
No, but an Earth Power plus a Throat Shot maybe does.
Yeah. So we're about to see why it's fairy. I don't know if this is like a certain situation you have in your head, like, oh, you can dodge a dark damage from King Gambit, but like it works out really well here. Coincidentally, both the Pokemon left on the field are Fairy Terra. But this is like the one way you can win this now, is if you're able to survive the Sucker Punch, and barely it does.
Like such a niche use.
I know.
Whatever. I mean, maybe if he's looking at his team and he's like, I have a big King Gambit weakness, what can I do?
I really want to know why Dylan chose Fairy there, because it seems like a little bit out of left field. Maybe Fairy is a pretty decent, just like general defensive Terra, no matter what your like original typing is. So I kind of get it, but I just want to know like what specifically.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah,
like a ton of sense anyway, as far as like Sandy Shocks goes. What was I gonna? Oh yeah, I really love how the hat spins.
Oh, I do too.
Sandy Shocks. I think that's so cool.
I know Dawes hates it, but.
He hates it? No.
It's fine. I love it, and we love it.
Who cares what
That's
Dawes
what matters. Not us.
Yeah, so you kind of see the game plan for both players here, and I'm actually kind of surprised that Dylan went back to Roaring Moon.
Yeah.
I guess that he's kind of playing to like a position where if you tail like, and I guess this is what we were talking about on turn 1, where he actually got like the Sleep Powder Mist, but then didn't Tailwind.
Yeah.
So that if you are able to get a Tailwind here, then you're in a position where you can get Tauros in and like be pretty threatening. So maybe that's what he's playing to after like thinking about what he did on turn 1, which was just Breaking Swipe to try and like take the sash. But I think that I liked the Tauros lead better.
I think I agree, just because Tauros actually can take a hit from either. And I guess Sandy Shocks can too, like we saw it eat either Leaf Storm or the Terra Eruption, but still it's giving up a lot of damage on what seems to be an important Pokemon. And I don't know, like say Abdullah Leaf Stormed instead of Eruptioning that first turn of game 2, like it's in Sucker Punch range even with the Terry Fairy.
Right, yeah.
So I think you have a lot more things that can go wrong with the Sandy Shocks like lead without the Tauros next to it, because Tauros demands more attention than Roaring Moon, I would say.
Right, yeah, definitely. Given that it's like more of the supportive set anyway.
Yeah.
So here, I think you're Dylan, you're always Earth Powering the Torkoal slot, but as I was going to say, it's a really easy switch because that's like a very like telegraphed play.
Yeah. And even then, like this, it's hard to punish this. Like assuming that you land the Sleep Powder, obviously. We saw the Earth Power do.
You'd have to be doubling into that slot with like a Throat Chop, which is like, do you ever do that? I don't think so. And,
I don't know.
And the Sleep Powder would have to miss.
Yeah. Which it didn't this time.
So it's gonna go to sleep. The Sleep Powder does not miss, and then Roaring Moon is basically just gonna not do anything, and now it's staying in front of a Flutter Mane while asleep. But I guess a Volt Switch is at least a little bit better than the Earth Power here, where you get the Sash and you get to pivot into presumably Tauros.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Like the Sash on Elegant, like we saw in that first game, or sorry, in that second game, I think is way more important than something like damage on Flutter Mane. And I don't think that Abdullah lets you Earth Power Torkoal on that turn. Like that's a really big read if you're Abdullah, just because the Torkoal is pretty important. And so I think reading that and just getting the Sash and Lilligant is more consistent than trying to go for like a Torkoal double or something.
Yeah,
like
that makes sense. But I think this turn there's nothing stopping you from after you Dazzling Gleam.
Right.
Because Icy Wind, does it even knock out Lilligant from this range? You probably need to Terra, right?
Like, you probably would have to Terra.
A Terra would probably get it, but I think that like an after you Dazzling Gleam is it just does damage to everything. Like you can try and pivot around, but you're giving up Sash and Roaring Moon or a lot of damage into whatever switches into that slot.
Yeah, nothing can take that for sure.
Yeah, and that is what it's going to be. So really what Dylan does here is what's really going to be the interesting piece of it, and he actually does go ahead and Terra it. I think he does.
I don't think you need that this turn.
I think he does Terra Ice at some point. Spoiler alert.
Is it this turn? No, it couldn't be this turn. Because it would have Terra'd first.
Oh, you're right.
I don't know that was a necessary Terra from Abdullah, though, just because Gleam would obviously knock out Moon.
Yeah.
The Sash is on Bundle. You're kind of throwing that Terra out. Maybe just to cover a switch, like you do more damage to a Tauros or Sandy Shocks on the switch, so I get that, but...
I think this is generally the Pokemon that you want to be Terraing on this team anyway.
Yeah, fair.
So, or at least into this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this is going to be one of the deadest Roaring Moons you've ever seen.
One of the faintest.
one of the KO-edest.
That's what we should do. I should get like the KO thing from OCIC.
KO.
Anytime there's a knockout, just flash it.
The KO to destroy. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Terra and Specs and the Proto Boost. It's like an insane amount of damage.
A lot of multipliers.
Yeah, and then there's still really like not a whole lot more. Like you're still taking a Dazzling Gleam this turn as well, and then Lilligant gets the opportunity to like either leave Storm or Sleep Powder into the shot slot.
Even like Shocks surely survives one, but like what's it doing back? It's not going to have an option to do a lot of damage to either of these. Even like the Proto Boosted Earth Power, like Fluttermane is easily able to take that. So you have to worry about. You would think the Flutter, like they're not running max speed, but they're probably pretty close. So it's not going to be outsped by Sandy Shocks, I would think. Mm-hmm. So you don't even have to after you in that case.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's just my guess.
Yeah. But it is going to be a Sleep Powder and it's just going to hit. So it doesn't even matter. But Bundle is going to get to move, I guess. So at least Dylan's going to get a knockout. But it's still like a really steep mountain for Bundle to climb, like basically by itself.
Yeah. I wonder if Dylan... I don't have to wonder. I'm sure that Dylan terrestrialized the Delibird. The metal Delibird, the Iron Bundle, just to make sure he got that KO on Lilligant. So I think if you Icy Wind there and you don't KO the Lilligant, it's probably... No, it might still be faster in the Sun at -1 because it's not Booster Bundle.
Right.
And so that's pretty much an instant loss. Like if you would try to Icy Wind
there...
Yeah,
it has to get knocked out there. Yeah.
But even then, like Kingambit now comes in and this is pretty easy Sucker Punch cleanup.
Yeah, there's not really anything you can do to Kingambit at this point because, I didn't see how much God, it did that much.
Yeah.
So there's no play here. I was gonna say like, maybe a Sandy Shock can take a Dazzling Gleam like a first turn in Earth Power, but nope, that doesn't happen either because this is always a lot of damage with a Dazzling Gleam and a Sucker Punch.
And even Terra Ice Freeze Dry shouldn't knock out the Fluttermane, so you can probably just Sucker Punch the Sandy Shocks to make sure it doesn't like Earth Power the Flutter and then Dazzle again.
Yeah, because
you don't really care about damage from Bundle right now.
Yeah.
So those are pretty secure and game I'd say from Abdullah, just because there's not. I think the issue with Dylan or Dylan's team into this matchup rather is that he just doesn't have a great way to damage or to take attacks from Fluttermane, especially 8-choice specs Terra Fairy.
Well, yeah, when you
Fluttermane in the sun with After You next to it.
Yeah, I think that After You is really the key piece of it, though, right? Because that's the letting this thing move before everything, and Bundle is like basically relevant in this format because it gets to move before Fluttermane, right? So when you get into a situation where Fluttermane is always the thing that's moving first, especially like against Bundle itself, you get to see like why it's really scary.
And with the Booster Energy Roaring Moon, like that's always going to outspeed Fluttermane typically, so that's a good point too. I think fast, strong Fluttermane is the issue here, and usually Flutter's only one of the two.
Right. Yeah, and you get to run bulk.
Yeah,
as we saw with that freeze dry.
Right.
Usually the specs are like the bulky ones, but when you don't care about how fast your Flutter is, then you get to like put the EVs into somewhere that's more efficient.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really scary, which makes you wonder why the set went so differently. But I think it's basically just the combination of like Lilligant, Torkoal, and Fluttermane that
you would think
like Abdullah figured out, or like was hiding, or was tipped off to, or something like that. Because I think that this is kind of something that we talked about when we were talking about older matches, is that like information is like kind of a big deal. And the thing that I'm thinking about, especially as it relates to this team, is that a lot of people have played Nails' team and might have been like familiar with the lines to be like, oh, have you considered playing this?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think like information is still, I think, an underrated part of the game now, even because we do have open team sheets, but there's still some things you can conceal, whether it be like speed tiers or game plans or something like that. But like lines you bring into teams, there's like one of the few things you can control, people like seeing or knowing about, something like that. So I am very curious. Troy described that. I'm very curious as to whether Abdullah intentionally left Lilligant out, knowing that that's the key, and if I play him in cut, I can just win with that. Or if it's something like you said, where he just wasn't aware how good of a line that was for him. Yeah. And he was tipped off before cut, because in cut you know, like, if I win, I'm going to play one of two people next. So yeah, I just don't. Yeah, like looking at Dylan's team, I can't really think of a reason that you would look at that and think I don't want to bring Lilligant here, like more than any other team. Where like there are obviously teams that pack things that are annoying for Lilligant, like Goggles Arcanine is like something that's around. Certain Taros on Amoonguss could be like something that's pretty annoying, but like there's not really anything here that screams like, especially because it's Sash bundle. Yeah, like it's not even booster. It would have been something that I would have thought that like if it was booster bundle. I honestly don't know whether or not booster. Like I didn't know. I think we looked it up. You would prefer booster bundle if you're playing Lilligant, right? Just because you can leaf storm it, right, and it gets knocked out. So like if the Sash is something that makes Lilligant's job a little harder, right? But you can also just put it to sleep. Yeah, I guess what I was saying is that in the absence of me knowing the speed tier, like, if it's booster, like I don't know if I want to bring this. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything that screams like, please don't bring Lilligant here, where you basically like nothing is stopping you from sleep powdering like turn one everything. Sleep powdering everything. Which is what he did. Which is what especially because the Amoonguss is tough to bring into this team too. Like you have the Terrablast Dragonite, you have Terrafire, Terrablast, King Gambit, you have obviously Torkoal. There's a lot of things that can do a ton of damage to Amoonguss like right off the bat. Yeah. So that being your like biggest or easily your best Lilligant check specifically, it just makes it almost dead weight in some matchups. Yeah. Like yeah. So I think that Lilligant not coming is Lilligant is really the key. Let me see it. Yeah. There was like a lot of, I think Dylan led Tauros a lot more in the first set. Like I'm pretty sure he led it into King Gambit a couple times. So yeah, so I thought that was really interesting, where you can kind of see two sides of the coin in various matchups and the way that things change like over the course of the tournament, and that even like certain matchups, and this happens like more often than not, where you play somebody in Swiss and then you end up playing them again in cut, where you kind especially of like, now too, you could realistically play someone in Swiss and then again in Swiss and then in cut. Right, yeah. Which is I'm waiting for that to happen. That'll be funny. It might have. I'd have to go check. I wonder if they played in Swiss. It's possible. I didn't actually look all the way back into Swiss. But those kinds of like extended matchups bring like mind games into the equation, and then it kind of creates its own like encapsulated metagame where especially you're playing if it's the like meta of this matchup, right? Especially if the matchup is kind of akin to rock paper scissors, and that like if you bring a certain line that gets pretty hard countered by this line, you can hard counter that line. And so I wouldn't say that's the case in this matchup. No, there are some that are certainly but like that. It can be that way. Yeah. So anyway, that's a cool matchup, and then as we sort of alluded to, Abdullah ends up winning the tournament. Wait, is this finals? It's top four. Did we say that? I don't know. It was top four. It was top four, right? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Who did he end up playing? Who did he play in finals? I watched the match and I can't think of it. Whoever beat Aaron. Ryan Lozzetto. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, this was top four. So anyway, we alluded to it, but Abdullah did end up winning the tournament in his first like official event, and he went like 13-2 or something like that, which is an insane run 14, in your first event. Oh, that's right, an insane run in your first event. Well, at any event, let alone your first event, which is that's an insane run if you're Aaron Zhang, who also had won the tournament about that record. Yeah, he got he had a tough match. I'm not saying that he lost because of the hacks in his top four match, but like he definitely was not helped by the hacks. Something Vancouver Will-O-Wisp. I don't know. Will-O-Wisp. Yeah. So yeah, congratulations to Abdullah. That was a really cool run to watch, and immediately on the tail of Justin Tang winning his tournament was really cool as well. So it's a good time to join VGC. New players are doing cool things. Obviously, all the events are huge, and they've been a lot of fun to be a part of. So if you've never been to a regional and you show up to one, you will win. That's how that goes. That's what I've heard. Yeah. That's what I've heard. So anyway, that was the case in 2013. Was that your first one? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anyway, thanks for coming by this week. I think we'll get the opportunity to do at least 1 or 2 more, like live and in person
We'll see how it
episodes
goes.
here, depending on what ends up happening. And we've got a couple of tournaments coming up. That our last Series 2 tournament, Regulation B tournament, is this weekend before we get into Regulation C. And then April has EUIC, among other things. I'm trying to think, or is it the only events?
Fort Wayne is the only April regional, which is like April 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And then because EUIC is 2 weeks after that. There might be like a European or Australian regional.
I'm not sure.
I don't know either. We'll have stuff.
When is Malmo? Is that May?
Maybe. I don't know.
Is there a Malmo regional?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure there is, right? Yeah, I want to say that was April or May. But anyway, so we've got Regulation C on tap. Are we going to do another Regulation B?
Probably not, because Charlotte's
we'll just get right into Regulation
3
C. Yeah, so we'll probably be back with Regulation C in a couple weeks, which is looking like kind of an interesting format. I guess we don't have to talk about it too much, but Wo Chen and Ting Lu seem kind of toxic. And I really thought it was going to be Chi Yu that was the toxic one. So this is really interesting. So we'll be back with some of those that stuff in a couple weeks. But until then, thanks for coming by. We're excited to continue to do this, and feel free to interact with us in the YouTube comments or on social media. I noticed the other day that my Twitter is actually on private, and I keep telling people to like tweet me. So maybe I should unprivate it. I keep forgetting about that. But yeah, you can find us on Twitter at MrBdog46VGC or at MajorBowman_. So feel free to find us there in the YouTube comments. And again, thanks for coming by. We'll see you in 2 weeks.